Okay, so thank you again for everyone who's joining us. My name is Ashley Zabrowski, and I am the Director of Business Development at Life Science Nation. I'll just kick things off first to tell you guys a little bit more about Life Science Nation and who we are and what we do. I'm joined by two of my colleagues, Greg Mannix, who's our VP of Global Business Development, and also Karen Dio, who's our Director of Investor Research, and she also handles Israel BD and strategic projects. So they'll be joining us a little later on into the webinar. But first, I'm just going to go into, again, just talking a little bit about what LSN, Life Science Nation, and who we are. So Greg, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. So this is a great snapshot of what LSN, who we are. The first thing on the left-hand side, you'll see that we kind of talk a little bit about our two databases that we have. So we have one investor database that we're tracking about 5,000 early stage life science investors across 10 different categories. So we have VCs, corporate VC, family offices, private equity. We're tracking all of them. The second database that we have is our company or business development database, where we're tracking almost 60,000 emerging startup companies across drugs, devices, diagnostics, healthcare, IT, therapeutics, all of them. So we have both of these databases, and we really wanted to create a vehicle for companies to, number one, investors and the companies to meet with each other. And we do that within a matching type scenario through our conferences and also through these two databases. We also have a focus on Cures Accelerator, where we really help early stage companies with their branding and messaging, getting their stories straight, and just making sure that you have a cohesive brand when you're going to go on a global fundraise. So you really are prepared for what the investors are looking for and what they want to see. So that's just in a nutshell what we have on our back end. And again, what we've done is we wanted to create a vehicle for the startup companies and the investors to meet with each other, connect, and that's where our Redefining Early Stage Investments, or our RESI conference, was born. At RESI, we have filterable technology within our partnering platform, which allows you to really narrow down your search of your technology and your stage of development in your sector, and really narrow down your investor search so it's very relevant to your technology, your company, and the types of investors and the investors that you actually want to meet with. In 2020, we also started two other conferences that we've now announced, and they all include our Life Science Nation Health Tech Partnering Week, and that's our 4D Meets AI conference, which very similar to our RESI conference in demographic. It just includes an AI technology piece. So if you have a technology that's using AI or machine learning, we have a conference that's focused on that during our Health Tech Partnering Week. We also have partnered with Mary Furlong and Associates for a longevity conference, Longevity Health and Innovation, which again is through in conjunction with our RESI conference and our 4D conference, which again makes up the Health Tech Partnering Week, which is just one whole week where you're able to narrow down based off your technology, your stage of development, and your indication and what you guys are focused on. So the next Health Tech Partnering Week, just so everyone knows if there's any interest, is March 15th through 19th. We actually just announced our partnering platform or just launched our partnering platform for RESI earlier this week. And so now people are going in there and booking meetings with relevant investors. And I believe that Greg's going to go into that a little bit later into this presentation. So that is LSN in kind of a nutshell. If you guys have any questions, number one, just a couple of things, feel free to write any questions that you might have into the chat feature. Also, feel free to email us at resi@lifesciencenation. I'm also going to put this information into the chat as well, because we're here to help early stage fundraising CEOs, scientists, entrepreneurs, and really helping you guys connect with investors in this space. So Greg, if you want to go to the next slide. So this is a slide that's just showing some of our current Health Tech Partnering Week investors. So all of these investors will be in attendance in the next couple of weeks. So you can go to the next slide. Something I want to mention, especially since we just extended our deadline for our Innovators Pitch Challenge across Health Tech Partnering Week. The Innovators Pitch Challenge is a really great opportunity for you to get in front of a really relevant set of investors based off of your technology. So if you're a therapeutics or med device or diagnostics company, you're able to pitch directly to those investors. So we have opportunities where you can have a dedicated web page on our live agenda page. This is what it's kind of showing in this picture right here. And then also a live Q&A where you do a quick minute overview of your technology. And then you have 5 to 7 minutes of Q&A with, again, that relevant set of investors during the conference. This is a really, really great opportunity within our programming that we have for early stage companies. And again, we did include the links on here, but we can forward these along after this webinar as well. And we'll also be sharing this information with you guys after the fact as well. But again, if there's any interest in the Innovators Pitch Challenge or the Health Tech Partnering Week as a whole, please, please, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. And then you can click off. This is an example of what the Innovators Pitch Challenge, we're all in this kind of COVID era right now. This is a screenshot from our January conference. You can see that we had a panel of investors, and then we had about 4 or 5 startup companies that did their pitch live to those folks. So you can go to the next one. Something that we're doing right now to let you know is we have a bundle offer. So that investor platform that I referred to earlier on, so we have an investor database that we're tracking, again, those 5,000 active early stage investors. You can get access to that. Typically it's 7,000. Right now we're offering it for 6,000, but includes our Health Tech Partner Week, so you can attend and also have a pitch opportunity at Resi or one of the other conferences, LHI or 4D Meets AI, for, again, all 6,000, which is a super value. You get access to the investor database for an entire year. So it takes like 9 to 18 months it can take to do a global fundraise. So having access for that amount of time is just super valuable. And also it's updated regularly through our research team that I know Karen is on. So any information on this, again, please feel free to reach out to us. Again, I'm going to put in my information into the chat feature so everyone has it. But yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell, Life Science Nation, what we do and some events that we have going on. And we're kind of here to talk to you about how you can successfully partner with the investors that are attending these conferences, and really how you can make the best practices and the best use of the time that you have. So with that, I'll give it to Greg.
Thank you, Ashley. Hello, everyone. My name's Greg Mannix, and I have been with the company for quite a while now, about 5 years. And it's kind of shocking for me, I think probably for all of you too, to see an image of what our conference used to be in person, with so many people in a small space, nobody wearing a mask. It's kind of funny to see. But the partnering at the Resi conference has become much more effective actually during the pandemic. And one of the main reasons for that is that the partnering goes on over 3 full days for 24 hours a day. So there are many, many meeting slots, actually 144, although it would be impossible to use them all unless you don't sleep at all. But the fact that the conference goes on for 3 days and you have so many potential meeting slots makes it very easy for the different parties at the conference to find a time to meet. And what we're going to talk about today is, a strategy for getting those meetings that you want to get at the Resi conference, getting as many meetings as possible. Because we like to say that fundraising is a numbers game. And the more people you talk to, the more you'll learn, the more opportunities you'll see, and a clearer idea of the right kinds of people you want to partner with will come about. So in this short boot camp today, we will talk about these 4 points. These 4 points are really the key to being successful on our partnering platform, which I'll show you in just a minute, to get meetings with as many investors, strategic partners, service providers, as many people as possible. So the first step will be to create your company profile. Then you really have to think about the message request you're going to be sending out, and then request many meetings. Request meetings with every investor you think might be a fit, and follow up, because you won't get a response from everyone right away. There will be a lot of people who don't respond immediately, and you don't want to let those possible connections go cold. So following up is very important. So on the platform, and we'll see it in a minute, it's very easy to set up a profile for your company, and you can put in as much information as you want. There are different sections in the profile for talking about your technology, the technical milestones you've achieved, your funding to date, your intellectual property, your management team. I mean, all of the key data points about your company that you would want an investor to be able to see when evaluating whether to take a meeting with you or not. So you definitely want to make your profile as complete as possible. I recommend that you upload a logo, your company's logo, to your profile, put in your website, and you can upload 2 documents, okay? So typically you would upload a deck and maybe an executive summary, or maybe a 1-page data sheet. So you can really create a complete profile for your company on the page, and that's a good starting point as you log on. Here's an example of a 1-page data sheet. Actually, it's 2 examples. Don't try to read that. I know the font is really small. It's just to give you an idea of what a 1-page sheet might look like. If you reach out to us by email, we'll be happy to send you a copy of this. Very important to really think about the outbound message that you're going to send to request a meeting. The biggest mistake, the most common mistake I see, is companies that don't write a good message requesting the meeting, because a weak message will give a bad impression of your company. If you're lacking information in that initial outreach, it will damage your possibilities of getting meetings. So you really want to think about what to put here, and you don't want it to be too long. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of a message, but basically you want to introduce yourself and your company very well. Explain what field, what kind of technology you're in. This is so important. And then, a key value proposition, kind of your elevator pitch, which might be a paragraph or several sentences, but it has to capture what is the most important, and what makes your technology special, bigger, faster, better, cheaper, whatever. You have to express that in not very many words. And don't forget to talk about the stage of your fundraising campaign and how much money you're raising. A lot of companies choose not to put that in there. I think it's a mistake. I think that if you reach out to an investor, one of the things they'll want to understand is what size of raise that you're doing. And that's not confidential information. So I recommend that you put that in there. I think that's more effective. And if you can customize the message in any way by doing some research on the investor who you want to meet with, that will always help your cause. And typically in one of our conferences, you will identify upwards of 60, 70, 80 potential investors to reach out to. That's really a lot of work to customize each one of the messages. So if you can't customize them all, at least customize your top targets, the ones that you really think are a good fit and you really want to get that meeting with them. Put a little extra effort in. And always finish your message requesting the meeting, making it clear that you want to meet at the Resi conference. So here's an example of a message, and we will share these slides with you after the conference, after the webinar tonight. And you can use this as kind of an example. This is I think about the right size of a message, and it includes a lot of the key points. Your message might be different from this. It doesn't have to be like that. I mean, you don't have to follow this this particular company's message to the letter by any means. You have to write your own message, but it's just a point of reference on the kind of content we think is useful in that outbound message. Request as many meetings as possible. So there's an interesting, well, this was when our conferences were in person, and it was a one-day conference, and there were a total of 16 meeting slots. Now we have 144 meeting slots at every Resi conference. So it's really a lot different. But the message here is the same, whether it's 3 days of partnering or one day. The message is the same. The more meetings you request, the better chances you have of getting a lot of meetings during the conference. So you can see here the companies that requested upwards of 50 or 60 meetings, those are the ones who got the most. And it's the same with our current format of digital Resi as well. As I mentioned, when you do a search, and I'll show you how we do that, when you do a search for potential investors and strategic partners, you should identify at least 60 and probably as many as 100 or over 100 potential investors. So it's really a great opportunity to start a dialogue with all of these potential investors and get quite a few meetings booked. But follow-up is so important. If you don't follow up, you will definitely miss out on quite a few meetings, quite a few potential meetings that you could get. If you don't follow up, you'll miss that opportunity. So what we mean by following up is, every conference you should start off as soon as possible. Partnering opened yesterday. So if you are going to participate in the March conference, or if you're already registered, you should start getting your profile ready and your messages out as soon as possible this week. And you want to send out that first initial meeting request. Really think about what you're saying there. You get that out. Say you send it out to 60 or 70 people. You want to wait a few days. Give the other person a few 3-4 days to get back to you. But there will be a lot of investors who you don't hear back from. And to those, you can send a follow-up message. We think that you should follow up at least 4 times between now and the conference, which is starts in about 3 weeks, a little less than 3 weeks. So over those 3 weeks, you should follow up at least 4 times with those investors who you haven't heard back from. And each time you follow up, if you change the message a bit and focus on something really relevant about your company, we think that will help. So when you follow up for the first time, you could focus on your technology and give some additional information or something really interesting about your technology that you didn't mention in your first message. In your second message, you can talk about the market or the unmet need that your technology is addressing. In the third follow-up, you can talk about your management team. And sometimes the strongest part about your company is your board of directors or your advisory board, or a combination of your management team and some of the key advisors that you're working with. Whatever works for you and whatever adds the most value for your message, you can do that in one of your follow-up messages. And then in your fourth message, you can create a link of your tear sheet, your one-page data sheet, or your deck, whatever you think is best, and you can put that link in the message that you send out. So each time you're adding a little bit of information, you're making it a little bit different. Most investors will get back to you either with a yay or a nay if you do follow up persistently, 4 times. And your success using our partnering platform and getting the meetings that you really want out of this conference is directly proportional to the effort that you put in. And it is a lot of work. It really is a lot of work, but it pays off because you can meet your next investor.
Sorry, we had a good kind of comment / question come through that I wanted to.
Yeah.
Someone's just asking, so 4 follow-ups is not going to be irritating to investors?
Good question. Very good question. And the answer is no. The investors are attending the conference to meet with potential companies to invest in, and they're expecting to get a lot of messages over the next few weeks leading up to the conference. It's the way it works, and if you don't follow up, your initial outreach email might be passed over because the investors are getting so many requests. So by following up, they're seeing your name and your company's name again several times leading up to the conference. There's a much better chance that they will, pay attention to your messages if you follow up. So I would say don't be shy about that. It's perfectly acceptable to follow up, and that's what the platform is made for.
And just don't follow up every day.
Not every day, no. 3 or 4 times leading up to the conference is good. We think that's a reasonable amount of follow-up. Okay, so I'm going to hop over to the actual platform to show that to you before sending this over to my colleague, Karen. Okay, so those of you who are already registered for the conference, you will have received yesterday an email with a link that logged you directly onto the platform. That's a really nice feature this year. It doesn't require a password, a username and a password, which is always a problem. We all have way too many passwords that we have to worry about in our lives. And this new system, it's a token, and it will recognize your computer and the address that you're logging in from. And you won't have to hassle with passwords.
I just want to make a quick comment about that, just to interject, since this is a new system. If you are logging in from a different device, you will need to go back to that original email and click the link again, because the token remembers your device.
Very good point, Karen, because this is new for this conference. We haven't used this system before, so keep that in mind. Okay, the partnering platform. First of all, there is a homepage that will allow you to have kind of a summary of what's going on, about how many meetings you have confirmed, how many you've requested. You have all that on the homepage. But when you log on for the first time, what you want to do is go to account, and this is where you will set up a profile for your company. And the profile is very, sorry, my internet's going rather slowly. Hang on just a second, please. Okay. So it's not opening an account for me. Hang on just a second. So you can always access the partnering platform from the resiconference.com website. So I'm going to log in again. And as I mentioned, I don't have to use a username and password. So it recognizes my computer. And let's see if it allows me. It's actually not, the account tab is not working for me. So while I'm talking about, there we go. Okay, I did finally get it to work. Okay, so the account page will allow you to edit, and it'll say edit the name of your company and edit your name. So of course we recommend, as I mentioned, to fill out as many sections and as much information as you can. You can upload documents and your and also your logo. Don't forget to create a profile for yourself. We can see here that our CEO, Dennis Ford, has already created his profile here. I have not, I should have, but I haven't. So this is, it's good to have your profile and even a photo. You have the opportunity to upload a photo. I think it's a nice touch for people to know who they're meeting with, and it adds to your the presence of your company. Then you'll definitely want to go to the schedule section, because as I mentioned, the partnering is going on for 24 hours a day. So that means if you don't manage your availability, you could have meetings booked in the middle of the night when you want to be sleeping. If that's the case, it's definitely the case for me. So, how do you do that? You go in and you'll be able to see the time in black at the top is the conference time. The conference is based on Eastern time in the United States. And then in green below, you'll be able to see your own time zone. So in my case, it's Central European time. I'm based in Europe. So the numbers in green are the times that are in my time zone. So if I don't want to take a meeting at 5:30, I can just make that unavailable. And I can say, okay, I will take meetings starting at 6 a.m. I'm going to leave it open. And I recommend that you leave as many slots open as possible so that you have better chances of taking a meeting with someone from a very different time zone from your own. The important thing here is that we have investors attending from really 5 continents. We have investors from Australia and New Zealand. We have investors from Asia. We have investors from North America. We have investors from Europe, and we have investors from the Middle East. And the more time zones, the more time slots you leave open, the better your chances are of booking that meeting. When you send out a meeting request, and we'll get to that in just a minute, the other party will receive that request. If they accept the meeting, it will automatically book to your calendar. So in my case, it could book anytime from 6 a.m. on. And then, later on, I probably will want to block off some time, say, I'll leave it open until 10 p.m. I'll take a meeting at 10, but I'm going to make myself unavailable starting at 10:30. So you can do that. So, I can have meetings booked anytime in here that is still left available. Now, also, I think it's a good idea as you're getting started to have a look at the sessions that are going on during the 3 days, because some of these sessions are really valuable for you. They'll have really, really great information about your particular space. So on the first day, you can see that there is a panel on early stage therapeutics investors. There's a panel on medical device investors and on digital therapeutics. If you're interested in attending any of those, just go ahead and click on it, and you can see who the investors are who are attending. Okay, these are medical device investors. And I say, okay, yeah, I would like to attend this, so add it to my schedule. Now it's already booked in my schedule, and I know that I won't have any meetings conflicting with that session that I want to attend. You can at the beginning set all of your the events that you want to attend during the conference. You can put them into your schedule and manage the times that you don't want to have meetings. So most important, search. Search is where you're going to identify the investors and the strategic partners and maybe service providers or tech hubs or whoever you want to meet with, other companies, other technologies that are in your space that you might want to have a meeting with. You can see everybody here. So if you click on investor, this will include all types of investors, as well as big pharma, big medtech. So as of today, there are 119 investment firms registered, and we're expecting many more to still register over the next 3 weeks. So if you check in today, it's a really good idea to go back and check the investors who are attending frequently over the next 3 weeks, because you will see new investors. So you'll be able to see here, there are all these different kinds of investors. We can leave that open as right now, but we can filter for investors that are working in a particular space that my company is in. So if I'm developing a medical device, I could select medical technology. So now I'm down to 78 potential investors. But some of these investors will be looking for early stage medical devices, and others will be looking for later stage medical devices. So I can filter down further to kind of refine my search. And I can also say, the indication of my medical device is musculoskeletal system, for example. And then I can say, in MedTech's phase of development, I can say my product is in development. It's an early stage product. Okay, so now I'm down to 51 potential investors that I might want to reach out to. And I can scroll through and I can read about each one, and I can determine which ones are the best fit for me. So for each investor, you can click on this little arrow next to their name, and you can read an introduction to this investor that gives you some pretty important information. For example, I can see here that they typically invest between $250,000 and $1 million. I can see that they will invest globally. So no matter where I'm based, this might be a fit for me. And then I can read down here the areas that they're interested in. So if I'm developing a drug, this investor would not be a fit for me, and it wouldn't have come up in my search, because they only invest in diagnostics, digital health or healthcare IT, and medical technology. And I can see the indications they invest in, and they're looking for early stage technology. Okay, they're not looking for clinical stage or on the market. So, hey, I think this one might be a fit for me. So I see that Kenny Carberry is the person attending. I can click on book a meeting, and I recommend that you go directly to book a meeting. Don't send a message. If you send a message, they're not able to accept and get the meeting booked. They would have to write back to you, and then you would have to send a meeting request. It's a hassle. So go directly to book a meeting, And this opens up a separate tab. Don't know what's going on today, but okay. For some reason, book a meeting is not working for me. I'm going to click on send a message. You can imagine that this is book a meeting. It's very similar. It gives you this box. This is where you're going to put that outbound meeting request message that we spoke about, and that is so important for getting meetings. Okay. Once you have sent the book a meeting, and the title will be request a meeting with Kenny Carberry. Once you've sent that out, you'll be able to see it in your message box. It will go to the other party's inbox, both in their partnering platform and in their email, so they will see it. And if we go back, so where were we with this investor right here? Oh, there were health ventures. So once you've sent the meeting request, you'll clearly see here a blue section saying that you've requested a meeting and that you've sent one message. So you'll clearly be able to see which ones you've reached out to. I recommend that if you see an investor in here who is not a fit for any reason, go ahead and bookmark it and just say, for example, not a fit. Then you'll, when you scroll back through the investors in a few days or next week, you'll be able to see which ones you've reached out to. And you won't have to read through the information again because you've already determined it's not a fit. So when, after a few days, 3 or 4 days, you haven't heard back from Kenny in this case, and you'll be able to see here that you requested a meeting and you've sent one message. Then you can click on send a message and send that follow-up message that we discussed earlier, where you can give additional information about your technology, about your management team, whatever you think is most relevant. And this will be, a way to make yourself visible several times to Kenny, and hopefully he will have a look at your profile and accept a meeting with you. Okay.
Greg,
One
you had
additional,
Yes.
I was going to say one additional trick as we add new investors at this very top page where we can see where Greg is showing right now, there's this little button that says order alphabetically. If you change it to order by date approved, which is the other option, it will display the people who have been added to the system most recently on top. So as we get closer to the conference, that provides you with an easier way to then go and say, oh, okay, these are the newest investors who were just added, so you don't have to constantly filter through and see who you've already seen.
Okay, so now I've changed it, and the most recent investors to register are now at the top.
Yep.
As Karen mentioned. Okay, are there any questions, Ashley, that you see in the chat box that are worth discussing now?
So Karen just answered that one from Dan, so thank you. We did have one other one. I think Karen's going to touch upon it when she has the reins.
Super. So I'm having some difficulties today. I'm not able to get back to Zoom. Karen, can you take over? See if you can share your screen. I may have to log out.
I can also pull up the slides if needed.
Yeah, I can do it. I can do it just fine. It will make more sense considering that I'm about to start speaking. So let me just pull that
I'm going to
up.
log off and I'll log back on because I'm having some difficulties today.
Okay. Sorry about these technical difficulties, everyone. The perils of working entirely in a digital realm. Let me just pull this up. Okay.
Karen, do you want me to put it up? I can.
No, I got it.
Okay.
It will be easier since I'm going to be scrolling anyway. So I might as well be able to control my own screen.
Are you able to bring up the presentation, or do you want me to?
I got it. Okay. Let me just get to where we were. Okay, so why don't I just answer the question very quickly and then kind of segue into the continuation of the presentation. So the question was, is Resi only for very early stage companies? Example, what if you are in phase 2 clinical trials? It really depends on where you are. Our conferences are focused on seed to Series B. Generally, the vast majority of the therapeutics companies we see are, you know, approaching phase 1. And so in terms of the VCs and things like that, the phase 2 might be a bit later stage than what the investors are expecting. We do also, of course, have representatives from big pharma, and they will look at early and late stage as well. So there might still be some relevance, but it might be a little bit more difficult because generally speaking, the rounds for entering phase 2 clinical trials or beyond are larger than generally the investors who participate will involve themselves in. So sorry about that, but just to let you know. So now going back, so with what Greg just showed about the partnering platform, so you've done all your research, you've sent out your meeting requests, and you've gotten your meetings booked. So how do you approach these meetings in such a way to make sure that they are as successful as possible for you so that you increase your likelihood of follow-ups with these investors? Okay, there we go. So kind of just to do a rundown of what we kind of recommend. So as you are getting ready for your meetings, you want to do a few things to make sure that your meeting is as successful as possible. So you definitely want to do more research on the investor firm, on the person with whom you are meeting. You want to make sure that your pitch is prepared. You want to make sure that you have backup slides on hand. It would be useful to bring a second attendee to those meetings, just what we recommend. And you want to be prepared with notes in advance. It doesn't necessarily have to be a binder. We recommend a binder when it's an in-person meeting, but on here, just even have a file open with notes for each meetings, things that you want to make sure to address with each investor, and also to have questions prepared to ask the investor in advance, because you don't want to just have them asking you questions. It's important for you also to ask them questions. So in terms of researching the investor firm, a good place to start is the firm's website. You also have seen the description that we posted. Just knowing a lot about the firm and what they're looking for can play a large role in how you approach your investor meetings, because that allows you to kind of tailor your pitch to the investor and what they are seeking. It's always really important, and we cannot stress this enough, the importance of knowing your audience, because that can make a huge difference in terms of how successful that you can be in the meeting and in having them want to follow up with you. You can also look at the portfolio companies that they've invested in. This will give you a good indication of what areas they are most interested in. This can also play a large role, and when you speak to them, you can say, oh, well, I saw this portfolio company and this is how it's relevant to what I'm developing or complementary to what I'm developing, showing that you've done your homework and you know them and what they're looking for. You also want to read about the people, the team, and especially about the person with whom you are meeting. Most places will have some sort of bio on the site, but we also recommend looking them up on LinkedIn and other sites like that, because if you know who you're speaking to, you will know their background. And that can also help you with your pitch, because with these investor firms or with a lot of these investors, you can't always assume they have a science background. There are people with science backgrounds, there are people with finance backgrounds, there are people who might know a little bit more about certain areas. So knowing who they are and what their history is can play a large role in helping you make sure that your message is tailored to them and that you're not, speaking either above or below their level. So you want to make sure that you're not getting too technical in certain instances as well. So as I mentioned, looking at their profiles and LinkedIn. So in terms of your meeting, so the reason that we recommend having 2 attendees from the company is it makes it easier to make sure that you get all the notes down and you don't forget anything. Sometimes investors will ask you to send them a specific piece of information as a follow-up, or asking information about when you're reaching a specific series of milestones or how you're preparing for them. So writing all that down and making sure all of that is down can mean for a more successful follow-up, because then you can go to them and make sure that you're giving them the information that they asked for, and you don't have all that fall through the cracks by a follow-up that doesn't actually give them the information they requested. One other thing about conducting the meeting that we definitely recommend is you have backup slides to demonstrate anything important, whether it be data or an image of your product or even a video of some kind. But from our recommendation, when you're starting the presentation, we don't recommend jumping straight into your pitch deck and doing your pitch. We find that from our clients, the ones who initiate a conversation and do more of a face-to-face dialogue, discussing their company and all of that, as opposed to just jumping into the pitch, those are the ones that tend to be more successful and have the most follow-up. So we recommend you really try to engage these investors in a conversation as much as possible, because, in this environment where you're not going to be able to be face to face, making sure that you're having a conversation and making eye contact instead of just running through a presentation will probably get you better results in the long run.
Hey, Karen, I think this is a good slide to bring up a couple questions that came through, if that's okay.
Yep, absolutely.
So first, this seems to be a popular question. Can you give us the top 5 questions for vetting investors at the beginning of the meeting?
Why don't I go through that at the beginning when at the end when I'm talking about asking questions?
Okay.
I think that would be a better place to kind of address that.
Okay, sounds good. And there's one last one. Would there be investors for seed round of fundraising? We have funding from NIH as of now.
Yes, we definitely have. So our focus is seed to Series V. So there's definitely going to be seed investors there, some micro VCs, some angel groups, that they're definitely going to be investors for the seed stage. Okay, so continuing on here, as we mentioned, you want your meeting, and we've talked about doing your research and knowing your audience. If you've prepared all of that ahead of time, having it so that you have your notes and you refresh your memory right before each meeting can be useful, because especially if you've booked a lot of meetings, they can blend, And so it's important to have a place where you can have the notes both that you look at before, so you remember specific things about each investor, and after, so that you remember, so that you have a place to take notes for that particular meeting, so things that you don't forget. So again, we can't stress enough the importance of taking notes and making sure that you remember in each instance who the investor is, what you discussed, and you're going to need to take notes, because you're just eventually they're going to blend together and you're not going to remember specifics. So this is really, really key. So here we are asking questions. So you can either do this at the beginning or at the end. It's really up to you. A lot of times investors may want to at least hear a little bit about your company and what you're doing before you kind of go into these questions. But the questions that you want to ask will definitely depend on the investor. Popular topics to cover are things like, how involved is the investor after investing? Do they take a very active role? Are they going to take a board seat? These are things that you're going to want to think about, especially if you're forming a syndicate. How many board seats are you going to be willing to give to your investors? If so, the lead investor is probably going to take one. Are there any other investors that are going to require one, and how are you going to balance that? Things like, how can they help you as you develop outside of the financials? Is there, can they help you with a network? If they're a strategic, are they going to be able to help you with marketing or with manufacturing? There's all kinds of questions like that. Then in terms of questions that you may ask for a certain type of investor, for example, with a corporate venture capital, you may want to ask, how involved is the parent company? And is there anything that will be specific rights that the parent company will take after investing? Or is there not a link between the corporate venture capital and the parent company? So it'll really depend, but you think about the fact that if you are getting an investment, it's like a long-term relationship. You need to make sure that you can mesh and work well with these people. And also that, you're making sure that you're getting what will help you develop into a successful company. Because in the long term, if they're not a fit as an investor, it's better for you and it's better for them not to just take the money if it's going to end up causing friction that could end up harming your company in the long run. So if you need to, if it gets to the point where you're seeing an investor who is in some way not a fit, it doesn't matter how desperately you need the funds, you may end up doing more damage to yourself in the long run if you decide to go forward despite that. So all things to consider in terms of what you want to ask and how you want to think about approaching an investor, and making sure that you ask these questions before you've gotten too deep into it so that you're not wasting your time or theirs. We have another question here. What would be the max funding size entertained by investors? That is really an investor specific question. And so that's part of the information that you'll probably see in the profile. You'll get an idea based on what range they'll invest. So for example, an investor who's looking to invest between $250,000 and $1 million is probably not going to get involved in a raise that's, over $10 million, because it just doesn't give them a big enough piece of the pie. Likewise, an investor who's looking to invest $5 to $10 million is not going to get involved in a $3 million round, because, they just not enough of, based on the size of their fund, they would have too many portfolio companies to be feasible if they invested that small of an amount. So that's one of the things that you really want to look at the investor profiles for, because by getting an idea of how much they invest, then you'll be able to kind of get a feel for what size of a round they would participate in. And with that, we are done. Are there any other questions?
I don't see any other questions. Oh, so do your investors include $5 to $10 million players? That
Yes.
just came through.
Yes, we will definitely see investors that will invest in anywhere from ranges of 1 to 2 million rounds, all the way up to even, 20 to $50 million rounds.
I would encourage anyone who has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Myself, Karen, and Greg, and all of our teammates are happy to answer any questions anyone has in your current fundraise. But yeah, we appreciate you guys joining us in today's webinar. We'll follow up with some of the materials, including the actual slide deck, so you guys can have that. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.